Governor Healey. It's great to see you.
Hey, great to see you too, Jim.
Yeah.
Hi, Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Governor, for coming in.
Yeah.
So let's start with the weather, Governor. I was thinking about this when I was walking around my house yesterday. What do I do if we have a blackout or an electrical shortage or a brownout? Or are we ready? Do we have the infrastructure in Massachusetts for this kind of heat if it continues much this summer?
Yeah, it is really hot, and just a few tips to people out there. Make sure that you do all you can to stay inside and stay hydrated. Check on neighbors. There are community cooling centers. There are places like libraries and community centers that are cool right now, so please take advantage of that. And of course, our state beaches and parks, splash decks are open as well. And we want people to be safe this week. It's incredibly, incredibly hot. In terms of reliability, we have a reliable grid in New England. We work very hard, the New England states and the region, through ISO New England to maintain that reliability. What I've also said, though, is that it's something we need to continue to make investments in so that we don't have problems with reliability. We also need to bring more energy into the region as we fortify that energy grid. That's very important. And as I leave here today, actually, I'm going to be returning to the State House to testify on a bill I've proposed, which is to make our energy costs more affordable. We've all been hit with high heating bills in the winter, and people will see bills with AC in the summer. But heating bills, electricity bills, we've got to do everything we can as a state to drive those costs down for our residents and for our businesses. I propose legislation to do just that. And when I leave here, I will be back on Beacon Hill testifying in support of that.
And by the way, nuclear is part of the mix that you're looking for. Am I not right
Sure
about
is.
that? Yeah.
Yep.
Have you always been pro-nuke, or have you changed with the times, as many people have?
Well, I think you've got to, have the conversation about what nuclear looks like today. And nuclear today is different than, some of the specter of 3 Mile Island and what we grew up with. And I grew up actually in the shadow of Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant. Today we have, the potential of small modular nuclear production, and there are places that are bringing that online. We need to have the continued work around storage and what we do with waste. But nuclear has to be part of the equation as we look to decarbonize, as we look to provide more energy into our regions. We are all consuming. Everybody out there, I'm looking at folks. Everybody's got a phone. Some have iPads, laptops. We talk about AI and all that AI is doing and generating. Well, that takes a heck of a lot of energy. And so our energy consumption as a world, as a country, has gone way up. And we need to find ways to bring more energy online, cleaner energy online. And that's something I'm focused on as governor here.
One last topic before we get to the calls at 87 and text at 877-301-8097. In a bit of a shocker, at least to some, Zohran Mamdani won the preliminary election in New York City. A Muslim, a self-declared democratic socialist, free transportation, free childcare, rent freeze. Is this just a New York City specific kind of outcome, or is there a message being sent to your fellow Democrats out of New York City?
I mean, my interest in New York is what do we need to do to beat the Yankees? I mean, that's really, honestly, I did see that come through last night. I'm focused on what we can do here in Massachusetts. I don't know what to...
But you are focused on what the Democratic message is, so to ensure, I assume, that there is a Democratic Congress come the midterms. Is what he is prescribing in New York City what the Democrats have to embrace? He's got an economic message.
I have no idea. It's a decision New Yorkers made, and that race isn't over. There's a long ways to go in that race.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go to Jack in Stoneham. You're on with the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey. Welcome, Jack.
Very much. So a couple things. I just have to say thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Appreciate it. I've been trying to get a question with Governor Healey for quite some time. So
Well, you're on, so let's get the question.
My question is,
Jack, we're going to put you on hold for a second. It's a rotten connection. We're not hanging up. We'll get back to you after we take another call. If you move around your house or wherever you are, maybe things will get better.
Wyatt in Winchester, you are on with Governor Healey. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Wyatt.
Hi, thank you. And I have a question that is very appropriate for today, and that is how to promote climate-friendly, sustainable building practice across the state. My family and I are trying to build the first certified passive house in Winchester, and because of some site constraints on our lot, like a high water table and municipal stormwater infrastructure, our design needs to be slightly taller than what the zoning allows. And I'm wondering if the state might consider creating a legal pathway for dimensional exemptions like those granted for affordable housing to help local boards, zoning boards, approve high-performance, climate-friendly homes like passive homes.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Thanks, Wyatt. Appreciate your question. Yeah, I think as a general matter, we should be doing all we can to help people along with building out, the kinds of things that you're talking about, more sustainability when it comes to the home. That's you choosing to make that investment. Nobody's imposing that on you, but you're choosing to do that for your home. Something we can look at. I can tell you, Wyatt, yesterday I filed something called the Mass Ready Act. And what is that? That is a bill that I filed to make important investments that we need to make in our infrastructure to make us more resilient. We're talking about extremely hot weather today. Sometimes we're talking about severe floods. We're talking about, different weather events we've seen in Massachusetts that have resulted in tremendous damage to people's homes and neighborhoods and businesses and a huge toll on communities. And so I want to propose that we make investments available to shore up our infrastructure. Sometimes that's bridges and dams, culverts we talk about, which get blown out in these massive floods. And it also goes to just generally the way we do housing and think about housing. And so I put forward a $3 billion bill yesterday to help us be smarter and make smarter investments to make us more resilient. And Wyatt's work around his own personal home is interesting and related to where we need to go. The reality is we're having to deal with the effects of climate change, and that creates incredible risk in terms of damage to personal property and risk of human life, including with heat, extreme heat. And so we need to be really forward-thinking about all of this.
Wyatt, thank you for the call.
That was one of the issues that we heard post the election, that one of the problems in blue states is that not only is it really expensive to do everything in a lot of blue states, but the regulations are really stifling, and that we need to loosen up a little bit so we can build more housing faster. You think there's legitimacy to that criticism?
Of course there is. And, I actually met Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson a few weeks ago, and we had a good conversation. I said, look, I subscribe to the abundance theory that we need to be building more. And I said, you know what, Massachusetts, as a governor, that's what I'm doing day in and day out. I mean, look at what I'm trying to do with housing. We're trying to bring more housing online as quickly as possible. What am I doing to do that? We're doing office to residential conversions. We're looking at old mills and converting those to residential properties. We're helping developers produce more housing by offering up state surplus land. We've got land where there's old state hospitals that are now closed or old courthouses that aren't functioning. We could turn that land into housing opportunities, bring more housing online more quickly. And in terms of abundance and the critique about too much regulation getting in the way, look, regulation is important, right? But it's got to be smart regulation. And you can't have regulation to the extent that it ends up, one, unnecessarily getting in the way of getting stuff done. And number two, have that regulation then be weaponized by opponents, NIMBY folks and the like, to stop housing or development from coming in. And so something else we've done is taken on this wholesale reworking of permitting and siting in Massachusetts. And I credit my secretary, Tepper, for leading that effort, working with a range of stakeholders, from developers to environmentalists, to think through, how we can streamline that. Because whether you're talking about housing, which we need to build a ton of, and we need to do that quickly, because people are paying too much for housing around this country. We need to build more housing for folks, more reasonably priced housing. People can actually live. We also need to bring more energy online. And that also requires, a mentality like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We got to get this stuff online. Like, we got to get wind to our shore. We got to get solar, to the grid. We've got to get battery storage to the grid. We got to get, energy into our states that is going to help us do what we need to do.
All of which the President of the United States opposes.
Unfortunately, that is the case. And, we continue to advocate because if you want to talk about American energy independence, it seems to me you shouldn't be taking energy sources off the table. I'm all of the above. So, Mr. President, don't take wind off the table. We need wind. We need wind to lower costs, to power our businesses, and to make this region, to make America more energy independent. And I thought that was the goal there. So it's something we need to continue to work on. But I can tell you, I've been very focused on this. Again, I was Attorney General. I know a little something about regulation and the importance of regulation, so that public health is protected, so that people don't get taken advantage of or exploited financially. Right? There's a place for that. There also has to be an acknowledgement that some of that has gotten in the way, and we need to streamline that. I have a really important regulatory group in my office that regulates consumer and business affairs. And I met with them a few months ago, and I said, I want you to go back. I want you to go through all the regulations that we have and identify any that are outdated, that are antiquated, that don't serve a purpose anymore. And I want you to come back, and I want you to get rid of what we should get rid of. And they came back to me, and they got rid of about 25% of the regulations. Now, before people lose their mind, let me tell you what I'm talking about. We had a regulation that said if you have a barber shop, you have to affix one of those cool-looking barber poles outside the barber shop in order to operate. Like, those are aesthetically kind of cool and interesting. Are they necessary to the operation of a barber shop? No. So there's like a bunch of stuff that we just got rid of. We need to make it easier to do business. We need to find ways to bring down the cost of living for folks. And we should embrace new and innovative ways to get there. And as governor, I can tell you, that's my charge to the teams every single day. And they are, they're absolutely answering the call.
Before we go back to Jack from Stoneham, who apparently is okay, while you were speaking about growing up in the shadow of Seabrook, a former federal judge, Nancy Gertner, texted the show and said Healey's parents provided the headquarters for the Seabrook nuclear power plant demonstrators, whom I represented. Healey herself was 6. Do you remember any of that?
I do. Let me just clarify. My dad was a selectman. I grew up on a farm in New Hampshire, about 40 acres, and I remember when the Clamshell Alliance folks were coming through, my dad let them camp out on the property. I don't know if I was 5. I don't know if I was 6. It's an interesting time there.
Yeah.
So your mom's okay with your new position, with your position on nuclear?
It's not a new position.
Well, your position.
Yeah.
Good.
By the way, it's my mom's birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom. 81 years young, and I don't know if she's tuning in or not. She was at church this morning and out and about doing all sorts of things. Yeah.
Let's go to Jack and Stoneham again. We're going to try you a second time. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you very much.
Sure.
So my question is, Governor Healey, your inaction has shown complicity with ICE and the Trump administration. When will you stop sitting on the fence and protect immigrants in Massachusetts?
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, Jack, I know you read your question. You're probably not familiar with all I've been doing on this, so let me explain. First of all, I've been standing up strongly for immigrant communities, standing up for due process. Everybody's entitled to due process. And also what I've said, as somebody who is Attorney General and put away a lot of bad guys, I thought what the Trump administration was doing with immigration is going after, that the promise was, let's take people who are violent, who are criminals in our communities off the streets, right? And we all want that. We all want safer communities. But what I've spoken out against is just the indiscriminate cruelty that we've seen with so many people who are paying taxes, working jobs, raising families, living and contributing to our communities for 5, 10, 15, 20 years taken away. And it's wrong. I had young Marcello from Milford, Massachusetts, who was the young high school student, a junior, honor student on his way to volleyball practice, picked up by ICE, detained for 6 days without any justification, without any reason, having not committed any crime and no suggestion of that, and yet was subjected to, a terrible fate, right? And he was released, and Marcello came, and I wanted to spend time with him and to hear about what he had gone through. My call to the administration continues to be, This is the time for comprehensive immigration reform. You got the presidency, you got the House, you got Congress. Let's get a sensible path to citizenship for people, who are working and living here and doing things right. And I'll work together with anyone who's truly about whatever the purported, interest was in taking criminals off the street. So I also have, Susan Church and folks in my office. They're the folks who actually filed the cases against the Trump administration, the Muslim travel ban. They're so great. I hired them, and they're the ones who are running operations for our Office of Refugees and Immigrants, working to provide support to communities and families in need at this time.
By the way,
Governor-
can I just add one thing to that, just a fact that
Yep.
we're going to discuss with Juliet Kayyem? Cato Institute did a study of all the grabs and deportations the Trump administration has done. 65% of those deported have no criminal record. 93% have no violent criminal
Yeah,
record.
and I think that's that's what so many people have trouble with, right? I mean, it's one thing if you're taking out and detaining people who have committed crimes. It's another thing if you're taking out people without them having done anything wrong or committed a crime, other than they're present here.
Governor, in that interview that you did with Marcelo Gomes de Silva with the Globe reported, he talked about how he was sleeping in a small cell on a concrete floor with dozens of other men, aluminum sheet as a blanket, no toiletries, no soap. He eventually got a toothbrush, and then they all got a small tube of toothpaste to share. I know that ICE is preventing government officials from going into these detention centers, but I don't understand why you can't. I mean, you're a lifer for murdering somebody. You get a bed, you get a toilet, you get soap, you get all these. What is going on?
I
With
don't know. I mean,
concrete
maybe that's
floors
something
and-
you should ask Judge Gertner or Juliet about. I mean, look, I can't do anything as governor. The members of Congress can go in and inspect, but I'm really limited in terms of what I can do when it
But
comes
it's pretty
to this.
shocking when you think
Well,
about it. That's
everybody,
how
I mean,
you-
to be clear, of course, Marjorie, anybody who's held and detained should be treated humanely.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I wasn't there. That's what he told me.
Well, that's what they said in Louisiana as well.
And, what I've said is that anybody who's held, and I think members of Congress have said as well who visited the facilities, anybody who's held needs to be treated humanely, right? And everybody in this country is entitled to due process. And I think that's one of the things that, is so troubling to so many, is that, and it's good. We've been, we've had lawyers, we've gone to court. People have, the AG's been in court. A lot of immigration folks, lawyers, are in court looking to vindicate people's due process rights here in Massachusetts and around the country. And that needs to continue. It's just a bad situation.
Michael in Charlestown, you're on with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Hi.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I attended the REFA luncheon that you spoke at earlier this month at the Omni Parker House. You kept talking about keeping Massachusetts competitive and keeping companies in the Commonwealth. Maintaining our infrastructure and school systems critical to the success of that. As a taxpayer and someone who does business in Massachusetts, this is great news, and I fully support that. My question is how these statements align with MassDOT's decision to overlook Global Partners' bid for the Massachusetts service stations. They offered $900 million more revenue than Apple Green, and that money could have been used to fund the state's goals. I understand that financials were only 25% of the bid, but Global was competitive or exceeded in all other categories. The selection committee only presented Apple Green's terms and made no reference to the other bidders' terms. Are you concerned with the transparency of this process? How does the board make an informed vote without knowing what the other options are? Is this how all of our contracts are bid out? And does it concern you what other money is being left at the table across the Commonwealth? Thank you.
We
Thanks,
got it.
Michael.
Thank you.
Michael, I think you're referring to what was a competitive bid process that went through a lot of hearing, went through a lot of debate, discussion. It was publicly, analyzed and the like. That was a decision made by our Department of Transportation. It had to do with the awarding of service plazas for the next several years and who was going to be in charge of operations. As I understand, they had sets of criteria and made that evaluation and made that selection. So I don't think there was anything untoward about the process. People might disagree about the result, but that was a decision made by the selection committee at DOT.
Couple of questions before we take a quick break. A lot of texts about the study.
And by the way, Global, great company here in Massachusetts, doing great work. But it's a decision made based on criteria.
Attorney General filed a comprehensive thing called the Study Act. One element of it is a bell-to-bell ban on cell phones in schools. What's your position and is your hope? Well, what's your position? And let's start with that.
I support it. I support it. I think there's, important things that you'd want to build in. You want to make sure that parents have a way of getting in touch with their kids, or kids have a way of getting in touch with their parents throughout the school day. But, that seemed to work in an age without phones. There's
You mean like going to the principal's office and saying, I need to call Mom?
Or the school nurse.
Yeah,
My mom was
okay.
a school nurse
Okay.
too for many years. So I think there are some things that you need to account for. But I think we see the evidence of the pervasive use of social media and screen time. And, within the school day, which is bell to bell, New York just did it. There's a lot of places doing it. We've had some school districts here in Massachusetts adopt it. And I support it.
Before we also take a break, Harvard, it's been reported, is involved in negotiations with the Trump administration over some kind of deal. Their concern, according to the New York Times piece, is any deal does not look like capitulation. They're a huge employer and obviously a huge presence here. Do you talk to Alan Garber? Do you talk to people there? Do they consult with you when they're involved in these things?
I would say I'm regularly in touch with all of our college and university heads, all of the heads of our research institutions, our teaching hospitals, academic medical centers, and the like. And I need to be. I'm the governor of Massachusetts. And, life sciences, science, research, innovation, this is core economic infrastructure to our state. So when the Trump administration defunds NIH, defunds NSF funding, defunds colleges and universities, and threatens then foreign students who come here to study, to research, some win Nobel Prizes, they start companies here. It is very damaging to Massachusetts' economic infrastructure. So I've been in close touch with a number of folks and continue to be, and my team continues to call for President Trump and the administration to start funding this stuff again. That's American competitiveness. There's no reason to cut America off the knees by taking away funding and research that has pioneered innovation around this world for decades.
Governor Healey, we've got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, Ask the Governor on GBH and NPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Governor will be with us to the top of the hour. You can call us or text us at 877-301-8970.
Hearing someone speak is one thing, but really listening, that requires something more.
To let the whole of us listen to the whole of them, to share something far more authentic so that at the end of it, they feel heard.
A new book stresses the importance of deep listening. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Benchmark Senior Living. Benchmark's Mind and Memory Care program is committed to instilling dignity and independence for residents by offering personalized care plans, working at every residence's pace. Locations and more at benchmarkseniorliving.com. And the Omni Boston Hotel at the Seaport, offering a range of experiences including a variety of accommodations, weekly jazz nights, a 24-hour art gallery, and more. Reservation information available at omnibostonhotel.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, insurance coverage from healthcare experts for businesses, individuals, families, and retirees. Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Learn more at mgbhp.org/everyday. And New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill, a garden destination 50 miles from Boston. Visitors can discover summer with thousands of blooms, twilight experiences, art exhibitions, and educational programs for all ages. nebg.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio, BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy, Mardragan, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, we're live with Governor Maura Healey for her monthly Ask the Governor visit. If you want to talk to her or text her, you call her or text her at 877-301-8970.
You know, Governor Healey, one of our colleagues, Megan Smith, did some great reporting on people who have been disabled, lived in places like the Fernald School in Waltham, unable to get their records. I think you know about this young David Scott. Well, he's not young now, but
She spoke to David Scott. He was at the library.
That's right. And his brother died at the Fernald School, and he's really struggled to get records about where his brother's buried. But this is what I thought was so shocking about this story. This young woman who herself had a terrible childhood, shuffled between foster care and state hospitals, she works as an intern at the Department of Mental Health. And while there as an intern, she's be able to get access to all her records, which were really disturbing, about being isolated in dark rooms and restrained and blah, blah, blah. So the point is, these people, because of Massachusetts' really tough privacy laws, I think they're over the top. These people can't get records to find out about their family members. Bill Galvin says he's ready to give them away if he's allowed to by the state, but the legislature, which would have to do this. So is this something you could get behind? We don't have much transparency here in Massachusetts.
Well,
what
on
do you think
this,
about this?
no, I saw that piece recently, and I reached out to my team to see what else could we do, within the extent of the law, to make records available to families. And so I support that. And if the law needs to change, we should pursue that.
But we have very bad public records access in general in Massachusetts. I mean, as you know, the legislature,
You're talking about
judges,
different things now.
We're talking about different things, but we do have very bad access to public records in general.
Well, I do all I can to produce public records and comply with public records requests.
So you're okay with this? You would like to see the legislature do this?
Yeah, I don't know all the specifics. What I did ask my team to do is go back and figure out, families of Fernald residents and patients, I want them that closure. Any family member, you want to be able to have access. So what I asked my team to do was go back and figure out, is there more that could be done just administratively, or if it requires legislation, then we should pursue that.
Okay.
Let's go to Marielle. You're in JP. You're on with the governor. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Marielle. I'm a Boston resident and Massachusetts taxpayer. In May, the Healey administration announced a partnership with Israel's Sheba Medical Center to launch a startup accelerator for AI and innovation in healthcare in Massachusetts. Sheba actively supports the Israeli military as they carry out genocide in Gaza. This is the same military that has bombed every hospital in Gaza and killed more than 1,200 Palestinian healthcare workers in systematic targeting. Why should Massachusetts residents trust a company actively supporting genocide and the targeting of healthcare workers with our healthcare and our data? And what does it mean to have a partnership with them?
Thank you,
for the
Marielle.
question, Marielle.
I think it's really cool that a company that is so focused on healthcare and innovation, is coming to Massachusetts. We had the International Bio Convention here last week, and I say that because, let's keep our eye on the ball, okay? I just talked about the hits to NIH. I talked about the fact that we have kids right now in Massachusetts who are on the cusp of receiving treatments for pediatric cancer, who had their hope ripped away by the Trump administration, in the last few months. We've had clinical trials shut down. We've had researchers who've had to been laid off, right? Innovation, healthcare, research, science to pioneer just life-changing, world-changing treatments and therapies. I'm proud of Massachusetts. I'm proud that we're the global hub. I'm proud that people come, as they did last week from bio, all over the world to Massachusetts because of that ecosystem. And so when there are investments that others want to make, no cost to us, but investments that others want to make, first off, I'm not surprised that people want to set up shop in Massachusetts because of that incredible ecosystem. And I welcome those investments, those jobs, and importantly, the lifeline that those treatments and those therapies and those cures can provide to residents in Massachusetts and people all over the world.
By the way, can I just say, we just had a brief pro-Palestinian demonstration, and I should make clear, anybody is entitled to ask any question they want without disturbing the show. If you want to ask a question of the governor and you go to Nia or Nicole, we respectfully, we are more than happy to entertain whatever question, and I know the governor is too. So,
Yeah,
Governor,
and I also want to just reiterate, we had a brick thrown through a deli in Brookline, last week. We've seen anti-Semitism incidents here in Massachusetts. I don't tolerate it as governor. I didn't as attorney general. We can do better than that. We can have agreements and disagreements about policy issues, but at the end of the day, let's remember that there's no place for anti-Semitism in Massachusetts.
can we talk about health care just for a second? The health insurance companies, I think, are requesting an average of 13+% increases. There was a hearing the other day, and it's sort of a double whammy because at the same time that they're asking for double-digit increases, which I think for most people in small businesses I'm aware of, and I'm guessing you would agree is unaffordable, you have the Trump administration with the so-called big, beautiful bill, the reconciliation bill, that if passed as is, I think you said in a press conference, would cut roughly $1.75 billion from Medicaid funding. How do you ensure access and affordability with these kinds of requests?
I don't know
and
that
these
you can.
kinds of pullbacks?
Right. I mean, Jim, I don't know that you can. I mean, this is why people need to, this week, do everything they can in lobbying Congress, Republicans in Congress, to not let this happen. Because no state can pick up the tab on the lost funding for health care or for food support or a whole bunch of things. This so-called big, beautiful bill is terrible. It's terrible. When you look at in total what it's going to do to health care, 250,000 people in Massachusetts are going to lose coverage. Nursing homes will close. Community and rural hospitals are going to be at risk of closing. A whole bunch of vulnerable people are going to be at risk. And people around the country are going to end up dying, frankly, if this were to go through. So this is the week. This is the push. Don't let it happen. What I will do as governor, and I've asked my teams to do this already, I've got to prioritize the most vulnerable among us, right? Our seniors, people with disabilities, these so-called work requirements. What people need to know, people in Massachusetts who are on Mass Health, yo's listening. You all know Mass Health people. Many of them are actually working. They're working poor, they're just trying to make a living. So, I've got to prioritize the most vulnerable among us. And it's also the case that, it's happening. These cuts are happening at the worst possible time when you see increases in health insurance rates that nobody can afford. And so, it's a really bad situation, and this is why we need Congress to stop this from happening.
What are you doing about the request for the 13.4% average increase?
My
in
commissioner of
premiums?
insurance is looking at that now. I've already signaled I'm going to do everything that I can, though, to not add to people's bills, whether they're folks at home with premiums or businesses. I mean, this is the single biggest expense when you talk to employers of all sizes right now. We've got to find a way to rein this in. I've also said it's not just one entity's problem, okay? You can't just blame the hospitals. You can't just blame the insurers. You can't just blame, others. It's going to require everybody to come to the table because, Massachusetts is not different. We have the best health care in the world. But around this country, the way we've financed and funded health care, it doesn't work. Right? These costs are growing all over the country. So what I want to propose is something different in Massachusetts, a partnership, a working together. How can we innovate and do things to rein in those costs? That's what we've got to focus on. And I want to work in partnership with everybody, all the stakeholders on doing just that.
We had a texter from a while ago who was texting from Truro, a 1,200 square foot Cape, complaining that his house insurance had gone up. And I think this is one of the things that's going to keep happening with climate change. I don't know how close this gentleman is to the water in Truro. This is Rick, but it went up $900 last year. He's complaining about it. We're all going to be in this boat. Even if you're not on the water. Yeah, literally. Even if you're not on the water because of these incredible rainstorms, the flooding, this is where we're headed in home insurance, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and you see insurance companies are already, calculating for that risk, right? That's what they're doing with people's rates, especially on places where they've seen, severe storm damage and erosion. And
So
it's tough. It's really tough for homeowners.
So I know in Florida, for people that can't afford the astronomical insurance there, if they're close to the water, they have some state program.
Yeah.
Are we anywhere close to that in
I mean,
Massachusetts?
we have a relief fund. Talk more to the AG's office about that. We do have a relief fund, but it's the broader issue of climate change and the havoc it wreaks. I mean, on communities is real. That's why at the outset I was talking about that bill yesterday that I filed, $3 billion that we can plow into more investment in more resilient infrastructure, right? So that our water systems don't collapse and get overburdened. Septic, and sewer systems, waste treatment. The work that we need to do around shoring up infrastructure so that it doesn't get blown out, the next time there's a storm. I'm talking bridges, dams, culverts, that kind of stuff. These are the things that we need to invest in, helping farmers across Massachusetts, get the kind of equipment and infrastructure they need to continue to operate successfully.
Derek and Lynn, you're on with Governor Maura Healey. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Governor Healey, I really appreciate you just were talking about it, your emphasis on equity and expanding mental health access in Massachusetts, and I think those goals matter to all of us here. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker with 12 years in the field. I've also personally struggled to help a loved one navigate the mental health system, so I know how vital DMH case management is. Since February, case managers have been facing layoffs from your budget proposal and are still doing really incredible work serving some of the most vulnerable people in Massachusetts. You just said you want to prioritize the most vulnerable among us, which is why I'm so confused and personally saddened by these proposed cuts. We had nearly 100 legislators supporting an amendment in the House to protect these vital services. Will you support keeping these protections in the final budget and turn your words into some real action here in Massachusetts?
Derek, thanks for the call and thanks for the work that you do in this field. I said for a long time, when it comes to healthcare, I think that where we need to be leaning into as a state, frankly, as a nation, primary care and mental health. These are things that we need, and we need more mental health providers. Over the years, reimbursement for mental health has been disproportionate to what it's been for medical, physical health. And as a result, we have a dearth of mental health providers. So that's my first point. I'm always going to be a champion and supporter of services when it comes to mental health. The second thing is around the budget that you speak of. I'm not cutting mental health. I'm not cutting mental health. In fact, our mental health funding has only increased during my time as governor. I think the issue you're talking about is particular programming, and I just want mental health professionals deployed in the right places and where we're maximizing their talents and skills. And if it turned out that there were case managers who were managing one case a day, it seemed like there could be opportunities to shift them to other locations where they'd have more ability to help more people. So, we're looking at all of that now, but I will be very clear that I'm going to continue to fund, as I have as governor, mental health services. I've grown that as governor. It's very important. I don't know a family that one way or another isn't dealing with mental health issues, addiction issues, other things, and we need to put the time and make the investment there. And that's from the earliest years on through the later years of someone's life.
So,
and it's another reason why, the big, beautiful bill is so devastating. I mean, how many people are receiving Mass Health, receiving these services? We just can't afford to have cuts in this area.
I'm sure you all know Mass Health is Medicaid. That's what we call it
Yeah.
here. Governor, you were at a Globe Tech Innovation Summit a week or so ago, and Josh Miller from the Globe asked you about the Millionaire's tax and whether you'd oppose any effort to repeal it. It's obviously a constitutional amendment. You said, quote, "No, I think we need to evaluate what's going on. I want to see the numbers. I just want to see what's happening in terms of any potential out-migration." I think the next day you went to the State House News Service and said you actually were not supportive of trying to undo it. What were you saying at that tech summit?
What I said. I mean, I don't know how they characterize it. I don't think, I think that was the issue. But let me tell you this. Here, what I said is that I think, first of all, any revenue we're getting from the surtax needs to go towards transportation and education. That was the bill I signed yesterday, and I'm proud of the investments that we're making, huge investments in literacy, in early college, where you can be in high school and go to a community college or one of our state colleges on the side and get credits to college. High dosage tutoring we're going to be able to do now in the state, where young people K to third grade actually have the opportunity to get high dose tutoring every day, one-on-one, that's going to really deal with particularly some of the gaps and learning loss through COVID. Important investments on transportation. We're going to be able to stabilize the T's financing for the first time in decades and plow a lot more money into roads and bridges and our regional transit authorities and so much more. So that's really important, making the very best use of those surtax revenues is something I'm going to continue to do. And then when it comes to revenues, generally speaking, Jim, my point was simply this. I'm not doing my job as governor of this state if I'm not looking out for and monitoring what's happening in terms of revenues, what's generating revenues, the impact of all of that. So, it's something we'll continue to evaluate. But I'm really pleased to be able to sign yesterday's law that is providing transformational investments. I mean, $8 billion over 10 years in transportation. That's what's going to happen as a result of what I did, what I proposed, and what I signed yesterday.
And as a result of what the people did on the ballot with a 52% vote. When you meet with business people, in the Shirley Leung column, there are a ton of business groups saying, we're unhappy with this, on and on like this, even though the voters vote. And you then explain to them, which I guess they don't understand, that the things they care most about, a good, efficient transportation system and high-quality education, is funded in huge part by the tax they oppose. What do they say? I
think that, businesses, like all residents, frankly, and taxpayers, want a return on their investment. And I think fundamentals to business, I've heard very good feedback in my administration's real intentionality and focus on making smart, strategic investments in transportation and in education. Transportation, people need to be able to get around. Workers need to be able to get to work. Education, we need an educated workforce where a workforce is trained for jobs that are available and need to be scaled here in Massachusetts. So, I think I've heard very positive response from the business community about how my administration has chosen to prioritize and then invest in, apportion those things. I mean, education, for example, one of the things that we're doing so much more of as a state, not only do we lead the country in early college, but we also are making huge investments in career technical education, in vocational education, so that if you're a high school student today in Massachusetts, you're going to be able to have training on robotics and advanced manufacturing and health services and, what it takes in some of the building trades, frankly, that we need to power out our grid and move forward with our transition away from fossil fuels. All these things now are possible through investments that we've made in our education system using those receipts, and that's important.
I know you're expanding the slots. We had Heidi Riccio from Essex Tech on the other day with a couple of reporters, and even though I think you're expanding 3,000 seats over the next 3 years, the demand for seats in Voc Tech and the supply is way out of whack. So what do you say to those people?
And that's why I'm expanding them. That's why, as governor, I'm expanding them.
But it's still not going to meet the need.
Well, if we don't start expanding them, we're never going to get there. Essex Tech, Essex Aggie. By the way, my grandfather went to Essex Aggie when it was Essex Aggie. It's one of our premier institution schools. These schools provide tremendous value. There's no wonder, they're a hot commodity, and a lot of kids want to go there, which is why we've expanded, the ability through admissions of young people to get into these schools. But, it's also why, Jim, I've expanded funding for the number of seats, both in vocational schools and also in traditional high schools, so we can have more vocational and career technical programs.
Armane, I hope I'm pronouncing that close to right, in Greenfield. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. And I love your show.
Thanks.
I live in Western Massachusetts.
Thanks. Glad to have you.
In May 2025, our family's entire month's food stamp benefits were stolen before it even hit our account. Elected officials in Massachusetts like to blame it on skimming devices, but our theft was due to computer hacking. After I researched it, I discovered that Massachusetts has been losing $1 million a month since January 2025 to criminals, and there's no replacement of benefits. Nobody knows who the criminals are, and the state of Massachusetts doesn't have a capacity to track down these criminals. And I have suspicions that it must Doge computer hackers who are stealing this money from the most vulnerable citizens of Massachusetts. I don't know who's conducting these investigations, and I've asked Governor Healey's office for a statement, and there's no message for recipients who are some of the most vulnerable.
You have the governor right here. You're talking to her. What's your question for her? What do you want her to answer?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm asking for is the replacement of these benefits that have been stolen at no fault of the people who are receiving these benefits.
We got it, Governor.
Yeah. First off, Armine, thanks for calling, and I'm really sorry that that you had that happen to you. Why don't you stay on the line so we can have your contacts? I'll talk to my folks at the Department of Transitional Assistance and see what can be done. I don't know the specifics of your case. I will tell you that we as a state work really hard to have the tightest cybersecurity and infrastructure possible to mitigate and prevent fraud. Some of this, you do point out Doge. I mean, we've had a big problem with Doge and its impact on these programs. SNAP is a federal program, right? It comes to the state. And, we've had a lot of problems at different points over the last 5 months with, funds coming through to beneficiaries, to recipients here. And, I don't know if it's because they fired too many people or messed around with the systems. I don't know, but it's something that we're working. We certainly want to work with anyone and everyone on to make sure it's made right. So stay on the line, Armine, okay?
We'll put you on hold. We'll get your contact
is
information.
Correct, $1 million a month?
I don't know anything about that.
No, I have not heard that either.
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
And I know we work really hard on program integrity to the extent it's within our control as a state. I can't control what the feds do. But
yeah.
Governor, we only have a couple minutes left. You met with, I think at your invitation, a couple of premiers from Canadian provinces, a couple of governors. I assume the New Hampshire governor was too busy to attend. Was she there?
She sent a representative.
Oh, she did? Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
What came out of that?
So, a few months ago I said, hey, look, the tariffs and what's going on with Canada, it's just no good. And I want to reach out to my governors in New England. I also invited the governor of New York, and we had
she was there, right? Hochul?
Yeah, Governor Hochul was there. We had Governor Scott from Vermont, a Republican, so it was bipartisan. So we had all the New England governors there are represented, and the New York governor, along with, we had about 6 premiers, 6 governors from Canada, including Doug Ford in Ontario and everybody east of that. And the point was, let's have a conversation. The ties between the Northeast, Massachusetts, the Northeast, frankly, America, and Canada are so deep. They're cultural, they're economic, they're familial. My grandfather family came from Newfoundland. Let's have them here and say, hey, Massachusetts, New England, the Northeast, we're open for business, okay? So, continue to come here as tourists. We welcome you, we support you. It's terrible what President Trump is doing, and this outrageous, discussion about 51st state. We know you're hurt, and they are hurt. They're angry, right? But it was to say, hey, we're not like that. We're not of that. You're our friends. You're our allies. We had a good conversation about trading relationships, about continuing tourism, which has taken a hit. I mean, Canadians. There were no school trips coming to America this year, including to New England. I grew up waitressing at Hampton Beach, and you see how things have dropped. Hampton Beach, Old Orchard Beach, down the Cape as a result of the loss of Canadian tourism. So this was a moment to say, hey, we're with you. Let's work together and do all we can. The lumber. I want to build housing. The lumber that we get, the softwood that we get for housing, that comes from Canada. Mm-hmm. The estimated impact of tariffs on energy costs alone for New England is $2.5 billion. That's what Trump has done. He's raised our energy costs by $2.5 billion through his tariffs. It's insane, right? The loss of tourism, whether you're talking my home state of New Hampshire or anywhere else, we've lost tourism between 20 and 60%, between New England and New York. So this has got to stop. The good news was, aside from them giving me a hard time about Brad Marchand, which was a little painful because we lost him. He's Nova Scotian. these are great people, great colleagues, and we're going to continue to find ways to work together.
I just want to mention that previous caller, Jamie, did some research. EBT card skimming is soaring. Mass lawmakers are filing bills to reimburse victims. The Department of Transitional Assistance tells Boston 25 News cases of EBT skimming. They have surged. SNAP benefits skimming has surged. So I guess it's a real huge problem. $1 million a month is needed to cover up these ripoffs. So that's that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to have some federal help with that. It'd be nice if Elon Musk and the technologists worked for good and found ways to, instead of ripping us off with crypto and all the other nonsense and ways they're finding to line their own pockets. It'd be nice if they actually went to work on behalf of the American people.
We can call Big Balls. He's resigned. Apparently, he's back at Northeastern. We don't know if he's back at Northeastern or not. But he was in Doge. He's no longer there. We're all going to miss him.
Notice the governor's not responding to that one.
No, but you know what? It's Are we closed now? Are you trying to wrap me up?
No, we're not.
Oh, good. I didn't know. Okay.
No, okay.
You thought Big Balls was a closing question?
I hoped it wouldn't be.
You hope you were, exactly.
Okay.
Governor, it's good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Oh, now you're closing.
Now we're closing.
Okay,
We
Jesus.
are.
I just want to
We
say,
are.
take care of yourselves this week. Kids are out of school. Good luck with all that and camps and, staying safe. Look after one another. And, as we've got work to do in the state, okay? But I'm going to get back to the State House now, testify on lowering energy costs. We're going to drive more housing. We're going to continue to improve transportation. Remember, Massachusetts, we're #1 for education, innovation, healthcare. We've been ranked the best state to have a baby, raise a family, best state to live if you're a woman, and 3 years post-Dobbs yesterday, reproductive freedom is non-negotiable. So that's, you heard it from me, and we're going to get back to work.
Good to see you, Governor.
Governor,
Thanks for your time.